Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never-ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing.
Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 438 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. So, I don't spend a lot of time on social media anymore. I have found that it just influences me way too much, and I want to be influenced by my own thoughts instead. Now, I do get on periodically, and when I do, I find that people can be really funny and creative, and a lot of times inspiring. I read a post once that has stuck with me for years, and it simply said, "Forgive yourself for what you did while you were in survival mode." Now, that was and still is to this day very comforting for me, and I think that's been years since I read that. And I think at any point in our lives, most of us can look back at a time in our life when we were in survival mode. Now, I know for me, I feel like I lived my young adulthood in survival mode, trying to figure out how to be an adult in a world that I was simply not prepared for. And we all have our own version of that story, right? Sometimes in our minds, we think everyone else around us has it figured out, or everyone else has a leg up that we didn't get. We think we're the only ones struggling to make sense of a world that doesn't always make sense. And we imagine that our situation is uniquely bad, and that's why we are where we are. Whether that means how you were raised or the kind of family you have, the color of your skin, how your brain works, your financial status, whatever it is that you think is uniquely bad because you have this going on and no one else understands or has ever been through it, whatever that is, I want you to know that in a way, you're right. There is not one other person on this earth that has lived your exact experience, not even your siblings. Maybe similar, but still very different. Are you feeling totally isolated right now? I hope not. That isn't my goal. My goal with saying that is to remind you, you can't compare yourself to anyone else in this life. And if you're going to knock yourself for your uniquely bad situations, then you also have to give yourself credit for making it this far in spite of your uniquely bad situations. We tend to be lopsided on how we judge ourselves. We are so much harder on ourselves than we would be anyone else. Think about it for a minute. If you were watching a movie and the star was playing your life, you'd be rooting for them and you'd be proud of them for making it this far. Because God knows there were times you shouldn't have made it out alive, or at least were lucky to not be in jail. Okay, maybe not that bad, but maybe. But those were the times you were in survival mode, trying to figure life out. Maybe you were trying to numb life away a bit because being a responsible, fully stable adult could sometimes feel overwhelming. But then again, so was being a teenager. And then there's our 20s. That's where I think a lot of us are lucky we didn't end up in jail or a straitjacket between figuring out how much partying we can do and still pay our bills and the roller coaster ride of relationships that we thought were going to last forever, but didn't. Those were overwhelming times too. Come to think of it, when wasn't life overwhelming? When isn't life overwhelming? It's quite a question to ponder. You might say, well, as a child, I wasn't overwhelmed. Oh, really? So kindergarten was a walk in the park for you? I mean, leaving the only thing you've known for the first time in your life, thrown in a room with other kids who may try to take your stuff or be jealous of your stuff or vice versa. And, oh, maybe they don't want to play with you because you're not their cup of tea. That was overwhelming too. You just adapted easily at that age. My point in all of this is I think a lot of us go through life thinking in the next stage of life it's going to be easier. But life is, by definition, growth and adaptation. I looked it up. The actual definition speaks to life being identified by growth and the adaptation to environment by an organism. And we're an organism. So by definition, in order to be living, we have to be growing and we have to be consistently adapting. And the act of adapting is simply we're becoming better suited to our environment. So that's a good thing. So the problem is not that we are constantly having to grow and adapt to our environment. That's just called life. The problem is we think there will be a time when we can stop growing and we won't have to adapt anymore. We think eventually we'll no longer have to deal with difficult people or difficult situations. And we might think, you know what, I should be in a place in my life where I don't have this problem, where I don't feel overwhelmed, where I'm not jealous of what other people have, and where I'm not affected by other people because I'm not their cup of tea. See, we have all the same problems as we did in kindergarten. We just aren't adapting as well as we used to. We think that eventually something's going to change or give and we'll just be able to coast right through the rest of our life. And we look to a time when we won't ever feel overwhelmed and we don't ever have to adapt or grow again. But that's called death, and I don't think most of us want to go there yet. The problem isn't that we have problems. The problem is that we think we shouldn't have problems. Eckhart Tolle said in a video recently that it's not that our parents didn't understand us, it's that we thought they should. So you could replace our parents didn't understand us with any scenario we come up with in life. So maybe you could replace it by saying, well, it's not that my husband didn't come home on time, it's that I thought he should. Your husband not coming home on time, that's a neutral scenario until you make it mean something. If he came home early and you were having a surprise party for him, you wouldn't like it so much. If you were running late, his running late would be fine. You see, it's all about what we make a situation mean, what we make things mean. So by definition, we will constantly, as long as we're alive, have scenarios that are overwhelming, uncomfortable, and require some level of adaptation. Now, that's kind of comforting to me. You know why? Because it means I'm doing life right. I'm rising to the occasion. I'm meeting the challenges and overcoming them. I'm living. I'm constantly having to grow and learn and adapt and overcome. That's not a problem. It's a beautiful part of our life. In yoga this morning, our instructor said before class that we're going to do hard things in class today. This practice is going to be really hard. She was kind of happy about it because you know why? When you practice doing hard things, you get really good at doing other hard things too. Nature has a million examples of how struggle makes a tree stronger or a break makes a bone even stronger once it's healed. What makes us think we're any different? We're not. Those moments, and you'll probably have them again, those moments when you're in survival mode, they made you who you are today. Your uniquely bad situations have made you stronger. Take any really bad thing that happened in the past, and I bet you could come up with something good that came from it. And if you're going through something uniquely bad right now, just know that you've survived before and you'll survive and get on the other side again. You always do. And if during one of those moments when you were in survival mode, you did something that haunts you, forgive yourself and let it go. You're getting stronger with every struggle you overcome. My challenge to you today is to think about some of the hardest times you've had and what good came from it. If there's something, if you really look. And if you weren't your best self during survival mode, forgive yourself and let's move forward together. But if you're going through something hard right now, remember this. This too shall pass. It always does and it always has. Share this with 3 people who you would love to uplift today. I love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few days.
Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.